Hello, Darshan Maharaja here. In the morning, I saw a video by Gurpatwant Singh Pannun of Sikhs for Justice, addressing Liberal MP Chandra Arya, saying you and your followers must leave Canada. Now, this is not the first time he has said something like this. Previously, he issued a video saying all Hindu Canadians should leave Canada. Now, I have stayed away from this issue mainly because, or maybe solely because, I see it as not being a productive use of anyone's time. So, it's one of those areas where no matter how many resources you devote, you are not likely to get any outcome out of it. So, I have stayed away from that. But when I saw this video in the morning, I thought that there are certain underlying aspects that perhaps you are not aware of, even though you have been seeing this Khalistan issue in Canada for a long time. Maybe, I mean, I'm not trying to suggest that you are not informed, but in case there are certain aspects that you are not aware of, I hope that this video will be helpful in that regard. My first reaction on seeing that video was, quoting Captain John J. Dunbar from the movie Dances with Wolves. It was difficult to know how to feel because I didn't know whether I should feel concerned or irritated that this was now escalating, or to laugh at the thing because it is patently absurd. And hopefully, I will show you why I think it is absurd. Because referring to his earlier, you can call it a threat or whatever, but for all Hindus to leave Canada, uh, there are many complications here. For example, there are Hindus in Canada, Hindu Canadians, Canadians who belong to the Hindu faith, who were born here. They can't go back to India. This is the country they were born in. This is the country they grew up in, and largely this is the country that they have known, barring occasional visits to some other countries in on vacation. So that is, of course, demographic that everybody is aware of. That there are people who were born here, they can't go back to any other country. Then there are Hindus from around the world who are not from India. The most prominent group that you may be aware of is Sri Lankan Tamils. They are Hindu. They are not from India, so they can't go back to India. There are also Hindus from the Caribbean, mainly Guyana and Trinidad, maybe other surrounding small nations also. Then there are Hindus from all the way from Fiji, which is very far from India. What happened was when the British Empire outlawed slavery, they needed people to work on their farms. So they started taking people from mostly eastern part of India, Bengal, Bihar, and eastern part of the state of UP. Back then, it used to be called the Northern Territories. So they took people from there, typically from a farming background, and took them all over the world wherever they felt the need for workers. Kind of like how we are bringing uh, students from India now and temporary foreign workers. It's an old phenomenon. So they were taking people all over the world, and some of them ended up in Fiji. In fact, the population of Fiji, almost half of it is of Indian origin, and majority of them are Hindu. And in the 21st century, with all this immigration happening, naturally, some of them are here, some are in the United States. So the point being that the demand that Canadians belonging to the Hindu faith should go back to India is kind of absurd. Now, I note that Gurpatwant Singh Pannu is a lawyer by profession, and in that profession, some level of accuracy is a requirement. But as we know from the example of Jagmeet Singh also, having a background in law does not necessarily foster a liking for accuracy and facts. So that is one example that we are seeing. But more importantly, even in Canada, even among first generation Canadians or Canadians who may have come here as children because their parents brought them there, they did not come here of their own decision, or even Canadians who may be born here, there are a lot of cases of intermarriages between Sikh and Hindu. So, if all Hindus are supposed to go back to Canada, to India, then what happens to these families? Are we going to forcibly separate them? And this overlap between Hinduism and Sikhism has always existed. Ever since the beginning, it has existed. Ever since Sikhism, you know, was brought by Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and uh, that overlap has always existed. In fact, the Khalsa was a force created for protection against predatory practices of the rulers of the time who happened to be Muslim. And the eldest son of every Hindu family used to be given to the Gurdwara to become a member of the Khalsa for the protection of the community. So there is the the sharp line of demarcation that they try to project between Hinduism and Sikhism has never existed. There has always been a very, I won't even call it an overlap. The two communities are interwoven. In fact, if you go to any Hindu temple, especially here in Brampton and Mississauga, the northern parts of Mississauga, because it's closer to Brampton, you go to any Hindu temple, chances are that you will find Sikhs praying there. And likewise, you go to a Gurdwara, you will find a few Hindus praying there. It has never been a mutually exclusive existence for either the religion itself or for the adherents of the religion. Granted that the Hindus that you find in the Gurdwara are more likely to be Punjabi because they grew up in that kind of a society where for Hindus to go to Gurdwara was a normal thing. And on certain occasions, in fact, it may have been required. So for them, it's a matter of habit, and then that habit gets passed on to their children also. So even though the children may have been born here, they are usually, I mean, it's not unusual to see them in the Gurdwara. So I thought about these aspects, and I thought maybe you are not fully aware of this. So I thought I'll bring them to you. But another, you know, offshoot of this threat or call or whatever you want to, whatever word you want to use for it, for Hindu Canadians to go back to India, is that it is an extension of the recent trend on which I have spoken in reasonable detail about the trend that some Canadians, and thankfully their numbers are low, although they are very loud, for all Indians to go back to India. In fact, if I may use the derogatory term that they use for all Indians, all Pajits should go back to India. Now we are seeing one group of those Pajits telling another group of Pajits to go back to India. This is not good for a healthy society. We all want to live here and contribute and make Canada a better country. But beyond that, looking at this whole phenomenon, I don't know if I'm overemphasizing its extent. I don't want to call it phenomenon if it isn't, but whatever the term, the trend that so and so should leave Canada. Who gets to decide which group has a right to stay in Canada? People who came here legally or people who were born here have a right to stay in Canada. Nobody can decide, that this group doesn't belong here. Let's expel all of them. We don't want Canada to be the 21st century version of Idi Amin's Uganda, from where all South Asians were expelled at short notice. And that is disturbing enough when it comes from the alt right or white supremacist. I have never liked that term. But anyway, to the extent that it is applicable to at least some people, yeah, those are the people who are saying that this group doesn't have a right to stay here. Now, that is disturbing enough. But now you have a smaller group of the same larger group that is being told to leave India, telling other people in the same group to leave Canada. I mean, sorry, telling other people in the same group to leave Canada. And this kind of fractiousness is not good for any society, and especially for a country like Canada. We pride ourselves on our inclusivity. As long as people are law abiding, we we are perfectly fine with having them here. And when they are citizens, even if some of them are not law abiding, there is nothing we can. There are issues to explore in that direction. For example, dual citizens. Uh, there was once upon a time a law providing for deportation of certain people who had committed certain crimes. That law no longer exists. So that is a different debate to have. But this, ad hoc intended expulsion of entire groups from Canada is not a good thing. That is what I thought. And I wanted to bring these aspects to you for your deliberation. Let me know what you think in the comments. Until we meet again, goodbye and be well.